Hi, welcome to the asynchronous version of Curriculum Night. So nice to sort of meet you. My name is Litza ST7, and I am teaching your child Social Studies, Washington State History. As you know, Islander Middle School stands on the traditional lands of the Coast Salish, Duwamish, and Muckleshoot people, who since time immemorial have taken care of, hunted, fished, and gathered on this land. We respect their sovereignty, their right to self-determination, and we honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and water. And I also want to acknowledge that the Duwamish are continuing to fight for federal recognition. So it's nice to meet you virtually. My name is Litza Griffin Johnson. I hope you and the students will call me Litza. The best way to reach me is by email. I'm pretty prompt at responding, but if more than 24 hours during the school week go by and you haven't heard from me, please feel free to send me another message just in case I missed it. The most important thing I want you to know is that I really care about your kid. I like your kid. I like all of these kids, and I am invested in their success. I want them to be and feel successful academically, socially, and emotionally. My hope and my goal in the classroom is to build community, nurture a love of learning, and build critical thinking skills. I want you to know that every choice I make in the classroom, whether it's in terms of academics or organization or anything else, I do it with thought and intention. I will not always make the right decision, but I am trying to do the right thing by every child 100% of the time. I really care about their learning and their well-being. In social studies this year, and every year, there are social studies skills, there's civics, there's geography, and there's historical events and current events. So I love that even though this is really Washington State history, it's really Washington State social studies because there's so much more than just history. It's the study of social behavior, how people do life, why people make the choices they do, and how that turns us into the community we have become. The vehicle for this conversation is, of course, Washington State history. So the geography of Washington, which we talk about at the beginning of the year. We talk about government, we talk about sovereignty, and we talk about the cultural identity of Washington State and how we got here. So historically and presently, who's included, who's excluded, why, and how does that make us who we are? We end the year talking about Japanese incarceration during World War II. I like to think of history specifically as two big questions, the what happened and the so what. And the what happened is all that stuff we can put on a timeline and tell you the names and the dates and all that. But the so what gets to why we care. And I tell kids that there's never going to be a time in their lives when somebody stops them at work or on the street and says, quickly, who was the first territorial governor of Washington? And if you can answer, like, yay, you win $1 million. That doesn't happen. But being able to use the skills, the so what skills that we use in social studies will benefit them always, no matter what happens in the course of their lives. Throughout this, we are making sure that students have a variety of different choices and the opportunity to advocate for themselves. So this is all kind of grouped together under the umbrella of UDL, Universal Design for Learning. So sometimes they will work in groups and sometimes as individuals, and they'll have choices in that. They'll be working on reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And if I'm not specifically assessing, say, reading, which I never am, because that's not a social studies curriculum piece, then there are other options for how to access information. For example, I always audio record any extended text I expect students to access. So they can read it, if that's how they process best, or they can listen, if that's how they process best. I try to be flexible in the classroom space. If you've been in here, you see there are a lot of seating options, a lot of ways to do things. We keep all of our work together in journals. Students can choose whether to have a digital journal on Google Slides or a paper journal that I've supplied in class, and most work will be contained within them. So if you ever want to see what your student is doing, ask them to show you their journal. I'm sure they will be delighted to comply. Information is posted on Schoology. And so they can always find assignments in these folders like Washington State Geography. I'm really focusing on conversations and making sure that students are able to listen to and consider different perspectives. I hope we don't all agree on everything. That's a very boring conversation. But I hope we can always listen to each other and understand where people are coming from. I hope we can grow ideas through conversation, that we can add depth, that we can ask follow-up questions, and we can ask ourselves why we think what we do. I hope we can continue to grow in articulating our thoughts and using data to support those thoughts. So not just, well, it doesn't seem fair to me that, such and such happened. But what about it seemed unfair? What happened? And enjoying the process of meaningful conversation. Good conversations are deeply enjoyable, and I want the kids to experience that. I also want to take a minute to thank the Mercer Island Schools Foundation. I am so grateful for their support and everything that we do. A lot of this classroom was funded by the Schools Foundation, and it really makes a difference every day to the kids in this room. So thank you to those of you who work with them. Thank you to those of you who donate. You're really benefiting everything we do in this room. Thank you, of course, also for everything you are doing for your students. They are wonderful kids, and I think it's going to be a really good year. Thanks.